Welcome to What's the Effie?
What the Effie?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of What the Effie. I am very, very honored today to have Nick Turnbull here of the Land League. Nick, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Effie. I appreciate it.
I'm honored. I'm totally honored, and I'm grateful. So, those of you who may not know about the Land League, it is a group which focuses on land, and we are going to learn all about that in a little bit. But before we do, I am going to roll the clock right back to when you were a little person. If you will allow me, I'd like to know just a little bit about what you were like as a child. Tell me where you were born, what kind of family you were born into, what was your school like, sports, girlfriends, anything under the age of 12.
Okay. So I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, in the suburbs. I'm the oldest of five. So I definitely have the oldest sibling mentality. I was extremely independent and kind of out on my own. One of the reasons is my mom actually had me when she was 16. So we're more like brother and sister than anything. And
Wow.
I think I had a lot of growing up really fast when I was young. But God bless my grandparents, because they were huge supporters of me growing up and still are today.
Nice.
So very thankful for them. But yeah, I mean, I have two younger brothers and two younger sisters as well. And that's pretty much.
Are they like that, two boys after you and then two girls, or are they mixed?
Mixed. Yeah.
Okay.
So my one brother, he's 24. He's actually a carpenter. And then I have two other siblings right underneath him. One runs a daycare in St. Louis. The other is still just trying to figure out life. And then my youngest brother is actually still in high school. So very big age discrepancies.
Should say. Tell me a little bit about what kind of student you were. What would your teachers say in elementary school and in high school? Would they say, "Oh, Nick is one of the good ones," or would they say, "Nick, do we have to talk about Nick?"
I think it would depend on the teacher and the day. To be quite frank, I mean, I was extremely active sports wise. Was extremely active in all sorts of things related to school, with groups and things. I was the president of our senior class when it came to not a valedictorian. Was not smart. C's get degrees. That's how I looked at it. I was definitely not somebody that was fond of some of the things taught in school. I was always looking for ways to make money when I was growing up. So I definitely had that entrepreneurial mindset, like right out of the gate, and like what I wanted to do and what I wanted to achieve.
Tell us about one of those, entrepreneurial ventures when you were little.
Oh,
what sort of things
first
can you
one?
remember doing?
Yeah, my first one is like Pokemon was huge. So I used to trade Pokemon cards and sell them for cash. I would take the Pokemon books from the Scholastic Book Fair, and I would buy one, and then I would trace them out and then resell them. I made my own like comic book. I used to do comic books and would do little things like that. And then after I turned 15 and I could like legally start working places, I did a bunch of different things. I was in hospitality for a long time. I used to cut grass, shovel snow. I sold Christmas trees. I think anything I could get on, like, I guess from sales perspective, I was definitely going after.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Not that dissimilar, actually, to my own. I did my fair share of cutting grasses and selling Christmas cards door to door and wrapping paper. And of course, the babysitting, that was a typical female thing I had to do. But, and also the newspaper routes, but that might have been before your time.
I
Newspaper.
did used to do the yellow books. I used to drop those off around the neighborhood, and I'd get paid to do that too. So,
Well, that's good. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. And I find sometimes that it does start early in the blood, that you got to make money in a creative way, your own way. And then of course you end up going to work for somebody else. What happened at the end of high school? Did you go to work? Did you go to school? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So I was the first person in my family to go to college. And at that point in time, back in 2009, that was like the only way that, the US was really saying you could get in front of like your career. You had to go to college. And that's when they were pumping out student loans to anybody and everybody. So I was like, well, if I want to make money, I got to go to college. I went to the University of Missouri, so the Mizzou Tigers in Columbia. But I went down there and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I had to figure out something because I had 4 years and I took on a bunch of student loan debt and just took a big bet against myself. So I still continued to work in the hospitality industry while I was down there. I was a bartender at a bar down there, and I ended up actually getting my hospitality management degree just because I had been in restaurants like basically since I was 15. So I was like, oh, this sounds like something I want to do. But after I got done bartending, I got like really burnt out, and it just didn't seem like that was what I wanted to do long term. So
were you still in school then, or did you get the degree first and then figure that out?
Yeah, no, I still got the degree. So I still got, it was a business management degree with an emphasis in hospitality. But I did bounce around to a couple different majors at first, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I actually went down there thinking I wanted to do sports broadcasting, but then I quickly realized there's no money to be made in sports broadcasting. So that was not something I wanted to do long term. The journalism school at Mizzou is one of the top in the country, right up against Northwestern here in Chicago. So a lot of people from ESPN and other publishing companies and things like that have come out of Mizzou over the years, and that was something that I thought was interesting at the time when I first joined, and then I quickly realized there was no money to be made in that, and so I decided to pivot.
What did you pivot to? Miss Robin Hurt agrees with you about entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So I pivoted to sales. So I was coming out of school and I was talking to my the bar owner that I worked at in Columbia. It was called Bangles, and their family owns real estate and businesses all over where Mizzou is. And he kind of was just like, you should get into sales. Like that's going to be your fastest path to making money and a 9-to-5. So that's what I did. I got into technical recruiting. So I was a headhunter calling people coming out of great financial. Yeah.
Sorry, headhunting is awesome.
It's a wild job. You're basically getting paid to get someone else placed, or you're getting paid for someone else to show up to work type of thing. And I was doing a lot of high-end technical roles. I mean, you're coming out of the great financial crisis. So a lot of, money was being pumped in to tech startups for app development, software engineers, you name it. So I was calling on some very high-level technical roles for companies in the Chicagoland area. And I did that for about a year and a half. But I got to go to a lot of networking events and see what was building in Chicago. And at the time, I thought only in Silicon Valley was where a lot of these companies were, and I was wrong. So I ended up pivoting into a very small startup here in Chicago, and I became one of their very first sales reps. And it was actually out of an apartment in the West Loop that we essentially were working out of. So it had the show Silicon Valley. It had very, very interesting vibes. Like everything was like IKEA desk, and I was in one table, and HR and engineering were right next to me, and like I was cold calling all day in the middle of this room while everybody else was trying to do their work. And yeah, that was my first taste into getting into tech sales after I got out of staffing.
Interesting. Yeah, the days of when they used to work in cubicles, right? And all you had to do was just kind of stand on your tiptoes a little bit, and you could see everyone. And the sound was the worst, right? I mean, even though they did make them out of cloth at some point, I recall that myself, that it was not. They thought it was like, oh, a great environment, but I saw it as a bullpen. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
So
I actually, like, I'm in an open desk environment now, and I kind of miss the cubicles. Like I had those for my first like 3 or 4 years out of school. But yeah, it's a whole different world now. I mean, people can get easily distracted. I'm a big believer in hybrid workspace now, but some people aren't. But yeah, the days of the cubicles and the like everyone has headphones now and they're calling on their AirPods. Like I used to have to be in a suit and tie every day in my cubicle, clean shaven, even though I didn't have meetings in the field that day. And I would just cold call all day. And then eventually I started just busting the elbows out on my dress shirts because I was just sitting there going like this all day, just picking the phone up. And I was for the longest time, I was like, kept going to my boss. I'm like, why did my shirts keep ripping at my desk? And he's just like, oh, it's because you're hitting the phone so hard, Nick. It was absolutely insane. So then I started shopping at TJ Maxx rather than, going and getting nice dress shirts because it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Funny. Out of curiosity, were you paid on a commission basis, or was it a combination of salary and commission? Because usually sales, you either sync.
Yeah, my first job was base plus salary, and it has been forever. So that's pretty much how it's been set up. But it's always been comped extremely heavy on your outputs. Like I don't think I could ever just go to a normal desk job and work do the same amount of hours and output and expect, you're getting the same paycheck every 2 weeks. It just, that just does not vibe with my personality. Would not be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Sales usually is a little bit closer to the entrepreneurial. That's for sure. Yep. So how many years did you do tech sales, and, or are you still in it at this point, or I want to know how you moved from there to getting into real estate.
Yeah. So it was probably actually it started right after school. I found a book at the book fair, or at the bookstore, not the book fair. Bookstore called What They Don't Teach You in College. And I read that literally like the last month that I was in school, and I laughed because I was like, wow, this whole book is completely going against like what I just spent all my money on and going to college for the last 4 years. And then I found Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then that really just opened up my mind to how I should look at what I should be doing long-term. And like so many people, I was just trying to consume information, God bless podcasts, while I was on the commutes into work every day on the subway. And that's how I discovered Bigger Pockets, and the rest is kind of history, and things just kind of started falling into place of like, but I was like the typical person where you just listen to Bigger Pockets over and over again and hear all these successful stories, but never take action. And I just realized for like 3 or 4 years, I really never took action into my real estate ventures the way that I probably should have, especially between 2010 and 2016 when we were coming out of the great financial crisis. But at the end of the day, what was like hanging over my head was I came out of college with $80,000 in student loan debt, and I had no money to put towards real estate. And think, that's just where I was.
Yeah. I think a lot of people went through that. By the way, do you know, can you see in the chat, in the comments section, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know who Jeff Wilbett is?
I do not.
Okay. Neither do I. But welcome, Jeff, because he's from Denmark and he wants to know how to join us. And he's here in the chat. So Jeff, I'm going to adjust it if you don't mind for a second, Nick. It is possible to actually bring you on stage back here with myself and Nick. However, as a responsible podcaster, I could not do that without having met you first and having made you pay me $1 million in American. No, I'm just joking. The point is, I don't know what I'm going to see if I pull someone up. So if it's somebody like Robin Hurt, I know. But that's very unusual, just so you know, Jeff. Very few podcasters would actually pull you up live, because this is live, to someone that they don't know. It's just my own limited experience, but I don't have a lot of experience. I'm only close to somewhere near 100. And that's not very much in our country. Sorry about that, Nick. I just wanted to make sure he didn't think I was ignoring him.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So you learned about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You were watching Bigger Pockets. You were getting the information and you felt like, dang, I got to pay off all this freaking debt. And how did it go from there to you actually taking a step? And what was your first step into real estate?
Well, before like taking any first steps into real estate, I was just trying to figure out ways to make additional active income, because coming out of school, like you're just a, entry-level sales rep, you're making $35,000. I mean, at that time I was making $35,000 a year base with like $25,000 commissions. So maybe what, 55,000 living in downtown Chicago, not going to get you too far. So I was just looking for different ways to make a living and trying to tinker with anything. So I got my notary license.
Oh, good.
So I did that for a little bit this was actually during COVID, the COVID times. I got my notary license.
Here, sign the paper. I'm going to throw it at you.
Exactly. But all these other people were doing it online. No, you
can't use my pen. Don't touch my pen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's funny. That strikes me as really funny.
Yeah. It was an interesting time. I mean, it was in super high demand. I mean, everybody and their mother was refinancing. So, I looked at that. I actually took a coding course to build websites. I got into an integrator academy because that's like my strong suit. And I figured out how to become an integrator for businesses online. That was probably my big one because that actually was lucrative. So I was doing side contracts for just online companies to build out CRMs, do workflows, things like that.
Nice.
I also invested in cryptocurrency like right out of school and just kind of rode that wave a little bit. So that helped me get my debt out of the way. So
good.
I think
I'm glad it worked in your favor.
Yeah. I have no student loan debt. That is all gone now. So
nice.
that was a big accomplishment. So
yeah,
I mean, at that point,
I have to jump in here and say, that Pace lost a pretty penny in that.
In what?
Cryptocurrency.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I've heard him talk about it, but I mean, it depends on what you're throwing your money at. I mean, I could go on I could do a whole podcast on why Bitcoin is the move. But
oh, really? You believe in it strongly?
I do, and I think it's the only
one.
What
about the Melania, whatever, Chipperoo and the Tarumparoo? I don't know what that stuff is. That
that's all food. That's all fugazi. That has no value, but Bitcoin does. But
that's interesting.
That's a whole nother conversation. I could sit up here and talk about for a long time. But yeah, so I just started figuring out different ways to make active income to help get me in the right position. And then my wife and we ended up purchasing a condo in the city, knowing that we would eventually turn it into a rental property. And then I also took over the HOA of that 12-unit building, because my whole goal with that building is to slowly buy out the units and then deconvert it to apartments and basically just own that building. So
wow,
that's my longer term goal, just because I know that building in and out, and I've done a lot of work with it over the last, I don't know, 6 or so years now. So
And where
we're
are
working
you
on
at
it.
in that process?
We're still at ground zero, because I've been down in South Carolina with Austin playing in dirt. So it hasn't been it hasn't been my top priority, but that's okay. I mean, I got into sub two right when interest rates spiked, but learning the power of creative finance and everything that's capable, I'd like this year, and the market that we're in right now is the perfect opportunity to use those strategies. So that's a big goal of mine this year, is to take the 2 units above me down via seller finance, because they're owned outright, and I've been developing relationships with the owners for a couple of years now. So we'll see where it
Nice.
goes. And it also, I think, just in general, will open up the doors for
Yeah.
all different types of opportunities for any of us real estate investors that are looking to buy things creatively.
That sounds very interesting. And like you say, well, it looks like a couple of podcasts we could do strictly on that. But
Yeah.
so you joined Sub 2 when, and why did you turn towards land? And how did you connect with Austin, who I adore? But, and tell us, how, what can we learn about land from you? So
Yeah.
how'd you go that way? Why that way?
Yeah. I had no aspirations of getting into land when I got into sub two. So I joined in July of 2021.
Okay.
And I was just looking to learn new strategies to grow my small multifamily rental portfolio. That was my own goal. And
Okay.
I was content with keeping my my tech sales job for the time being. And I was in Discord, just going around to different channels, just trying to network. Because like right when I got into the community, like I was just taking phone calls and talking to as many people as I can, just to try and like understand it, because I saw it was growing extremely fast. Because I think when I was in it, it was like 6,000 or 7,000 people. And then I was in the Montana Discord group at the time, and I was asking anybody if they were doing anything up in Whitefish, and somehow Austin, pinged me about it, and we got on a phone call, and one thing led to another, and he told me what he was trying to build from a land perspective, because that's his background. And I was like, well, I got integrator background. I'm very operationally savvy. Love pulling data. Can like do all of the back end things to kind of like bring in the strategies, just because like I've done top of funnel sales my whole career. And that's how it started. When he asked me if I knew anything about land, I was like, no. I was like, great. Now I got to go pay more money to go learn something else. But at the same time, I was like, hey, I'm here. I've committed what I wanted to do in sub two, and I needed to commit to something. And I knew I did not want to wholesale houses. So I got into another mastermind on land with a very small group of like 100 people. And that took us to where we are today. Yes. Because when
do you mind me asking what that was?
Yeah, it's called Land Boss by Travis King.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
because
I got into,
I don't know, maybe when you joined, like Austin is a very big leader in land, and now more and more people have come to know land. But I thought we had, wasn't Jeff Smith doing a series on land?
Yeah,
at
that was
time?
about no,
Or
that
was
was
that
about a
after?
year. That was about a year after that. Which I've been in those. Those are great. If you're just trying to figure out land, those semester courses that we have in sub two on land are awesome. There's
Yeah, and if
definitely
you're there,
a lot
you'll
of
see me.
nuggets.
I was asking questions
Good.
because I do find land interesting. It's a little bit daunting when you don't know a whole lot. But I know that Jeff makes it pretty clear, and it seemed like if you wanted to get into it, you could. That's the thing about sub two, or one of the things about sub two, is that we have so many different categories of items. self-storage, RVs, multifamily businesses, single family, co-living, on and on and on. Just about everything is in there. So I had met Austin partly because of his photography. I wouldn't say I'm a photographer, but I was always behind the camera because I didn't like my big nose. I didn't like pictures taken. So I was always behind the camera. So I can appreciate a good picture. Photograph that's well done always it catches my eye. So that's how I first met him, because he does take exceptional photographs. And then I learned about, his involvement in land. So what did you learn in that, mentorship about land? Like how, what are the basics? What does one do? How do you know if a piece of land is worth buying or not?
Yeah. Out of that course, I mean, it just showed us how to effectively pull data and do the right marketing to get to the right buyers. But also, at that same time when we got into mail, it was coming out of COVID when the money printer was on and everybody was going crazy about the real estate market. So everybody and their mother was sending mail, like a ton of mail to these landowners. So they're getting contracts all the time. So we were just trying to figure out how to stand out, how to leverage Austin with his sales techniques, as well as like being boots on the ground in South Carolina. And I think those things really helped us stand out, top of funnel when we were trying to just kind of like make things work in our first year, because we were just trying to, do proof of concept and see if something were to happen. And luckily, we got a couple deals closed and continue to scale from there. But I mean, when you're looking at a piece of land, even today, sometimes like I'll look at it and I'm like, I don't know if this is a deal. I don't see it here. But then Austin will look at it and he'll see it a different way. So you got to have a really creative mind. Every time I look at a piece of land now, I think about the Squat Up Summit session last year with Jamil, talking about like the 13 ways to close a deal. And he took that like one piece of property in Arizona and gave us 13 different ways of how we could have sold it. And what they ended up doing was they tore the house down and then they actually turned it into a land development and sold that. So as long as you can think about all the different things that you could do with that one piece of land, you have a lot of options. And, it could be rezoning. It could be subdividing it, which is something that we really focus on, exempt subdivides in certain counties in the Carolinas, because they allow that without having to go through a whole county approval process. You could entitle the land. Yeah, you could entitle the land, which
what does that mean for people who are? Yeah, explain that, because not everybody would know what you're saying.
Yeah, so basically, you want to take the property and get it ready, developer grade, like ready to sell it to D.R. Horton or Mungo Homes or somebody that wants to take the land. You've already done the whole approval process. You got it to what they might call paper lots.
Okay.
That is
so you're taking land that you bought and basically making sure it goes through the process of whatever needs to be done so that title can be changed. And now it has, some value because of that process. So that when a developer gets it, they don't have to go through that process beforehand, which takes a lot of time and expertise.
And it could take 18 to 24 months. It's very costly too. You could be forking up, a couple $100,000 potentially just to get it all the way up to where you need it to be. And then you got to make sure you got the buyers in the back end, because you have to pay for the infrastructure.
Why? Oh, now does that include the infrastructure being put in there?
Yeah, and the surveying and the permits, and there's a lot of things that need to go down. So
I didn't realize it includes the infrastructure.
Yeah, depending on it. I mean, some of them.
Sorry about that.
Some of them could vary. So it all depends. But that's been on our bucket list. Every time we analyze a big chunk of property, we ask ourselves if we can entitle it. There's potentially one that we're looking at right now that might actually finally check the box after 3 years of hunting for one. So they're not just all out there for the taking. You really gotta be disciplined and find the right deals. So, and a lot of people too, like they could be entitled property, but they don't want to go through all the hassles. So guess what? They'll just cut it up and subdivide it themselves and sell it to homestead buyers, or they'll just flip the land to somebody else that might go and eventually do it. So there's a bunch of different options.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I have learned through going through that series and talking with land developers like yourselves, is that it isn't just like one way, as it might be if you were selling a single family home. Well, even with single family home, there's many different ways to get the job done, but there are so many different possibilities that you can't tell. I can't tell. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to learn, but I don't know what I'm learning. It's pretty deep, and wide. You better, have your patience, have your buyers lined up. There's a lot of things that are involved in that. So I find it interesting. And it seems like you would have to have a lot of creativity and knowledge of different areas for sure. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So talk to me a little bit about mindset. How has your own mindset, or what should be the mindset of somebody who wants to be in land? Because if you asked, I think different skill sets require different mindsets. And I'm kind of curious as to what sort of things do you think a person needs to be really strong in if they're going to be looking at land?
Well, if you're doing it all yourself and you're doing it solo, you got to be the jack of all trades, because you got to be able to do top of funnel data analysis to get your mailers pulled, to then know what markets you want to target, to then actually talking with the sellers on the phones, negotiating the contracts, to the back end dispo, finding the buyers, working with surveyors, maybe land clearers. There's a bunch of different things that you might have to do. So like for me personally, like Austin and I, we have a partnership where I'm doing the top of funnel data analysis, which now we have 2 cold callers and a lead manager now that we're working with.
Oh, nice.
And then, yeah, it's great. It's been a huge help for us rather than just relying on mail. And doing that top of funnel, trying to find like what are the sniper lists that we really want to go after, so we're not sending 10,000 pieces of mail anymore. Maybe we're only sending 500, but we're up in the marketing spend to really be targeted to go after the right piece of properties for us. And then Austin handles the conversations in the middle, and then I'm working on dispo on the other side. So, I mean, mindset wise, I mean, I think any entrepreneurial, endeavor that you're going into, you just got to know that like there's going to be a lot of failures, a lot of ups and downs. Like there's that famous like picture about entrepreneurship where it's like it goes up, but it's like a million squiggly lines on the way up to get you to where you want to go. I mean, most businesses fail within the first year, and then like most don't survive after the first 5 years. Yeah. So you just got to do the action and do the work, just like any other real estate venture that you might be getting into, and to becoming obsessed with it. Just like when I got into tech sales, I became obsessed with sales, and I became obsessed with the industries that I was selling into. I would read blog posts, I would listen to podcasts, I would read books. And that's exactly what I've done since I've gotten to land. And if you have that right mindset, and the beauty of it now is AI's here, and you can take a hour-long podcast, throw it into ChatGPT, get a transcript and a summary of all the important things you need out of it in about 10 seconds. You don't even have to listen to the whole podcast anymore. and that just upgrades your knowledge a lot faster.
Yep. The curve is shorter, I think. It can be shorter if you do it these ways. Do you know a lot of people or many that are inland on their own? I kind of wondered whether this is an area where you would be wise to have at least one, if not more partners, because of all the complexities that are involved. And I'm also wondering, with that long haul, I personally would be worried about making mistakes and not knowing I'm making them.
Yeah, and that's where I think, like looking at the land league, bringing deals to Austin and I to walk you through and review. We're talking about getting these deal review sessions set up on Thursdays so we can actually walk people through a deal. And I mean, that's exactly how we did our first subdivide. I took a 56-acre piece of property to somebody that we thought we wanted them to just fund it for a double close flip on some timberland. And they've been in land for a couple of years longer than us. They've done some entitlement deals. And they're like, no, you need to subdivide this. And I was like, show me how you want to subdivide this and then how people are actually going to buy it. Because it was like really skinny lots. And I didn't see it. I was like, there's no way there's a market for these skinny lots. And I was wrong because we ended up subdividing it. And I put it on Facebook Marketplace and we sold everything off within like a weekend or two.
What was the market for skinny ones? Whoa, really?
Yeah.
That fast?
It was super fast.
Whoa.
There's just a big need for people that want to get out of the cities and get back into the homesteads. So the skinny lots turned into, somebody bought 3 of them and somebody else bought 2 and then another one sold off and then someone bought the bottom portion. But they were all doing the same thing. They're all buying the land to have property for, their 2, siblings or their son and daughter. So it shows what people are trying to do, and it's happening all over the country.
So they basically, how wide would the lots be that you're talking about?
They had 150 feet of road frontage.
Okay. That's pretty decent for a city lot. Like if it was a city lot, you'd say 150 feet. That's good. What would be the length be?
Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Exactly. I'm just kind of curious as to, so people were buying them to build their own home on.
Correct. Yep.
So does that mean that they had to already be with sewer and electrical and such provided to the lot, or did they have to take care of that?
Where they were at, it was all septic. So they would put the septic systems in and take care of that. And then there was power at the main road. It was a dirt road, but it was county maintained. So they could tap in there and pay their fees. But we didn't have to do any of that. We just had to carve up the lots, get it surveyed. So, every deal is different and it just depends. Like, if you're in it, every county's different too. So you also need to be very aware of the counties that you're doing this in, because a county next door to the one county that we're always in doesn't allow exempt subdivides.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We have this dude here. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
He's trying to tell you what to do.
Don't reveal all our secrets.
And I'm here to make you do exactly that. So what's he doing? That's funny. Interesting that could happen inside of the group. And by the way, guys, if you are interested in land, please do consider joining their group. I find it interesting. I'm poking my head in there every once in a while. It is definitely of interest. And since we have this, hold on a second. I thought that I would let people see who you have that you have to work with. All right. Look at that. I would say that you're doing the lion's share of the work there, carrying this guy on your back.
Yeah, that's about right.
I'm so, yeah, really, truly. Oh, that's funny. That is funny. But I also want to take a look and to show that, it's fun when you have a person who is with you that you really do like and that you can have fun with, for sure. And you have good
Yeah.
reason to be pursuing this. You have a beautiful
Yeah.
family.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's our main driver. I mean, Austin's in the same boat as me, just two young dads, just
Yep.
selling dirt. And
Yep.
yeah, I mean, we have the same aspirations. So from our business partnership, it makes a whole lot of sense. What we're trying
Absolutely.
to accomplish.
Now,
What we're trying
Austin
to
is
do.
pretty active on Facebook and on YouTube and such. Have I got the right address for Facebook?
That's my only social. I think Instagram's a death scroll, and I've just been off it for years. Even though Pace would kill me if he heard me say that out loud, just because it's about cloning yourself. And as a member of Owner Club, I should be more active on Instagram and all social media feeds. So that is also a goal for me this year. Actually, like I was saying, next week when I'm off, to get everything up and running so we can have our content. So if you don't follow
Good.
me, you can follow Austin. Austin's very active on social media. So
you can tick off part of that box just by coming on here, because it will also be on YouTube for sure.
Yep.
So that is, I think you have to move at your own speed in a certain way. I mean, I told you before that I felt like he pushed me into this, and I was like, you bugger. Honestly, that's how I felt at that moment. How dare you? But now I'm okay with it, and I'm glad I see the benefits, but there's a lot involved, more than a lot of people think. So yes, I'm glad that we can come, and as soon as you're up there, let us know, and we'll drop it in and help spread the wealth. Sure. But I would like to ask you what lessons you have learned so far in land. If somebody says, okay, I'm going to get going, I want to know what you've learned. Like, what have you learned? Do you think I really need to know? What would you say to them?
Man, it's a loaded question. I think I could go on for a while about this, just because I feel like we've
tell us at least one positive and one negative, or tell us, something that you would say, watch out for this. This is the most dangerous, or one of the most dangerous. I'm always curious to see how people will answer that.
I mean, like I was saying earlier, every county's different, so don't expect, to, spend a bunch of marketing dollars on mailers and expect to get a bunch of people to respond the exact same way. Like, you got to remember the people that own all the land either are land banking it. They're already very successful individuals, and they're just sitting on it. They don't have the motivation like maybe somebody that has a distressed home that they need to sell. So if you call them up with an offer, it better be a serious offer, not a lowball offer. Granted, you could come across people that, maybe inherited it. They don't know what they have. And, you have an opportunity to get a good deal. But I think that's one of the things. It's not hey, let's copy paste this same method that we're doing, where we're at today in every county in the country, and we're going to become millionaires overnight. Like, that's just not feasible. So you just have to do that. And you got to build your team up within the counties. I think those are some big things. You need to build relationships with builders, with developers, with surveyors, soil scientists, obviously real estate agents, land-specific real estate agents you want to become friends with, not residential ones. So that's also, I think, some of the big things.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. I imagine that knowing that each county could be quite different and needing to be connected with the multi aspects of the people involved, you probably have to kind of niche in right?
Yeah.
At least a beginner, you better know, don't expect, like you said, to do too much because it's not going to work.
Yeah, because I've seen so many people, like even that went through that group with us, like, they start showing frustration 6 months in. They're like, I haven't got a deal. I've sent, 50,000 mailers and, all these things. And you're just like, well, all you did was just shotgun blast out, 50,000 mailers, 10,000 mailers a month, like all over the country. And you're expecting to see results when you need to, like, it's just like being a sales rep for any company that you're a part of. Like, you get a territory, become really good in that one territory, and you continue to just milk it as much as you can and become that expert in that area. And that's when not just mail, it becomes your one source of leads. You start getting inbound leads from people that you're working with in the community because they know you're the land specific person in that region and you've done deals with them and they know that you're reputable.
That's interesting. Are there areas of the states that are unexplored when it comes to land, or are they all pretty much sophisticated in their own way? Yeah, I remember having, go ahead and if you know the answer to that, I'd be interested in knowing.
No, I was going to say, like, actually, Joe McCall, who is a big guy in the land space, he had sent an email out at the beginning of the year talking about, I forgot how many counties and parcels there are in America, but like it's very abundant still, even though, they don't build it anymore. You still have plenty of opportunities, but I'm sure you could probably go up to Maine and probably run a land business up in Maine and do pretty well for yourself. And there's probably not a lot of competition going on up there. So, I mean, obviously you think about out west, like Montana and Wyoming, like, yes, it's getting bought up in chunks, but there's still a lot of land out there. I think if you focus on the secondary markets outside of the major cities, I mean, think about Chicago, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you can't go east because of Lake Michigan and everything just keeps getting pushed out further and further west. And I'm actually shocked to see some of these cities that are blowing up, an hour to an hour and 10 minutes outside of downtown Chicago now, that when I first moved here in 2013, never in my mind would have thought that there's these huge subdivisions going up. And I'm like, man, I just need to drop mail campaigns in my backyard because, we're seeing the growth and everything happening. And it's happening all over the country.
I think Naperville was the furthest, west that I was willing to go. And I had heard of Naperville before I moved to Illinois as a nice area. But are you saying like even further west than that?
Oh yeah. Like Plainfield, Sugar Grove, Sandwich. Like some of West Chicago is blown up. Yeah. There's a lot of places out west in like Will and Kankakee County that I just didn't think would have been blown up the way it is now.
Why do you think that's happening?
The cost of living and people want further out of the cities. I think that's what you're seeing. I mean, I could do the exact same thing in St. Louis where I grew up. Like, it's happening there too.
So it's more affordable and and that's okay. Because personally, I think Chicago, it is the third largest city. And for me personally, besides the fact that it is freaking cold, I also think it's quite noisy because of the airports that we have. And there's so many it's too much for me. It's, I prefer more peace, and I could see that would be a reason that were it not for my grandbaby and, son-in-law and such, and also the weather, I would want to be further out myself just because, less pollution, less traffic, fewer trains, and all that stuff. It seems like it's a lot and expensive. So, yeah. And the taxes in Illinois are
they're fun.
Real fun. Yes. Fun. For sure. Okay. All right. I'd like you to take a minute, if you don't mind, to talk to me about what you think your plans are for, let's say, 3 years to 5 years down the road. What have you looked at them that far out yet? You know, we're not far from January. Usually January, everybody talks about their plans. What's your thought? You know, you're in this now, and that you've learned, you're going up the curve. What do you think you want to do in the next, let's say, 3 and 5 years?
Obviously, we want to get our wholesale land business, fully operating to where we could bring in, an acquisition manager, and we can bring on maybe another VA or so to help us out and really get the engine going. So then Austin and I can continue to put more focus towards Land League and help educate people on this space. Austin always, talks about it with me about we're land developers and wants to continue to go up that path and take down bigger tracts and do bigger developments. So continuing to educate ourselves on that space and doing those things. And then also, kind of taking things out of like what Pace has done over time, where like he's buying businesses around his real estate empire, to where I want to buy businesses around who we operate with and land. So like a land clearing company, a surveying business.
Slow it down. Slow it down. Wait, slow it down, because I'm taking notes. I'm serious. A clearing company. Well, that's so interesting. And what was the other thing? Sorry.
Just like anything that would touch our business is like ideas that, I would potentially want to acquire and build upon, because
I'd like you to list those. I didn't mean to stop you, just to slow you down.
I mean, just two of the examples I was saying was just like surveying or land clearing businesses. I think, it goes back to the whole like Cody Sanchez approach of like boring businesses. I still think that it's super ripe for disruption. You could call 8 surveyors in one city, and maybe only one of them calls you back because they don't have online presence, they don't have reviews. And during my whole let's tinker on a bunch of different things from an entrepreneurial perspective, not this past year, the year before, I started a cleaning company in the western suburbs of Chicago for a year with my wife. And I quickly realized the power of online reviews and what that can do for a business. And we were outranking so many people that had businesses in this area for over 20 years that had cleaning companies, just because we knew how to operate online. And I think a lot of the businesses that are deemed boring, that is all of that's ripe for disruption. So I think you could do that in any niche that you're working in.
I would agree. I think that's one of the wisest things that Pace has turned us on to. And of course, Cody is a big part of that too. When you were trying to reach out to surveying businesses, are they usually a one-man shop, or do they have surveyors and they're just not structured enough and accessible enough through online and such to be able to be efficient? What's a typical surveying business look like?
Yeah, it's actually funny because there's a lot of growth going on in certain states in the South after COVID, and in South Carolina, surveyors are in high demand. And when I finally got a hold of one of them, because we needed a survey done, and then there was like a 12-week wait period to get it done because they're in such high demand, they were telling me that there was about 250 surveyors in South Carolina, and about 90 of them retired during COVID, and only 20 new surveyors came in. And it's a 4-year degree. You have to go to school for this. So it's a role that you
degree?
Yeah, you have to go to school to get certified on all of these things. So that is like, it's like if somebody went and bought an HVAC company, you got to have all the certifications and things to take over that.
But
business.
It's not 4 years, is it, for an HVAC? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know.
No,
I would have thought it was less.
I think HVAC's 2. I think it's 2 years.
Yeah. Trades.
But
And I would have thought that surveying was trades, to be honest. I'm sorry to show my, I mean, I shouldn't say I'm sorry to show my ignorance. It's me. What the F and do I care? I don't know. So therefore I am ignorant.
yeah.
I didn't realize that it was a degree. Maybe in the business of opening up those degrees more too, because that's pretty sad to think 20 were coming in and 90 retired.
Yeah.
Because
I
you
mean,
can't,
there's
if you
definitely
need a 4-year degree, lead time.
yeah, it's bad.
So did you have to wait 12 weeks?
Yeah, we did. We had to wait 12 weeks.
Wow. What about the clearing companies? What's with that? Tell me, is it like I don't know enough about it, but I do know tree removal companies. Is that the closest thing to them?
Yeah, it's like brush
what's the problem
removal
with
and stuff like that. I don't think there's a problem with it. I just think it's just when we're buying land, sometimes we look at if we go in, what Austin does the marketing photography for us, and if we need to clear a patch out to make it seem more presentable for, hey, you're going to put your house here, we already cut it out so you can see what it would look like. That's just something that's just part of our process. So rather than going and paying somebody to do it, why don't I just go buy the business and then have them just do our jobs for us?
Yeah. Yeah. I could see with the surveying companies, how many employees do they usually have?
The surveying companies
How many
are small.
surveyors are?
There's
How small?
they're
Is it like
small.
1 or 2 people, or is it 7, 10?
Yeah. I mean, there's some bigger ones that have a team, like maybe 10 or less, but like a lot of the surveyors that I've worked with are just one-man shops, or maybe 2-man. They got an executive, they got like an executive admin in the office, and that office could just be their house. It's probably their wife. And then they got the one surveyor. I mean, the guy that did our survey, he was 89 years old, and he had to walk 56 acres in the middle of the summer. But he said he wasn't going to retire because the money was so good, because in such demand.
I'm sorry, that's so funny. I mean,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Gee whizzikers, had you known, right? You could have gone for the right degree at the beginning.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it is interesting to see. Yes, yes. Well, when I was teaching ESL, and I was teaching, in Vancouver, and I was teaching to people from all over the world, they wanted to know about our society and our, situation with workers. And depending on where they were from, some of them felt that the trades were an excellent place to become wealthy. You become an electrician, it takes you some time, but then you have electricians underneath you. And, they had a mindset that was like, this is good business. And others were like, I'm not getting into I'm not being a plumber. I'm not being an electrician. That's low. Nobody values it. And I was like, it is interesting how different, in different segments, what happens if you don't have these these tradesmen. Although I have learned now, a surveyor, what do you call them? You don't call them a tradesman, right? You call them what? Highly paid individuals.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I would call them a tradesman. I mean, that is a specific trade that is a need.
Yeah, it is. But let's see, with a 4-year degree. But anyways, that is very, very interesting. Well, I would like to say thank you very, very much. And again, folks, do check out their Facebook group. And it's nice, and I'm glad to hear that you guys are planning on developing it even more, because I know in Sub 2 we have many people who are interested in land. And it's good when you can find a place where you can grow. And if you're interested in land, you should get in relatively now, because it's still new. and you can grow with them. So I appreciate that. And of course, we want to, if you want to reach out to Nick himself, there's his Facebook. And in the future, he will have a little bit more. And when you do, please let me know, because I'd love to add it to the notes or of the show, and or just to be aware and help you when I can.
Yeah, you could. I'll give you my email too. You can email me if anyone wants to connect.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep, it's just
You want to
Nick
do it online?
Yeah, it's Nick at unpaidproperties.com.
Unpaid?
Unpaved.
Paved.
Like an unpaved road. Yep.
I'm thinking about the surveyors. They're paid very well. Unpaved. I'm sorry. Unpaid what? Paved.
Unpaved
Tell me the
properties.
Oh yeah, properties. Sorry. You'd think I haven't emailed you, but I have. Funny. Okay, I think I have it right. Please tell me if this is correct. No, I don't have it right. Sorry, let's fix that. Unpaved. I forgot the N. All right.
There you go. I sent it to you.
Oh, okay. All right. He sent it to me. Here we go. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome.
And is there anything else that either I or we can do? Because, that's what we're here for. Everybody helps each other out.
No, I think this was a great interview, and I appreciate the conversation. And thank you so much for having me on. This is my first podcast, so I'm honored that you let me come on and tell my story. And I look to do it more this year and let everybody know in the Sub2 community who I am and what I'm doing, and also the world, because we are live on YouTube.
You better believe it. And I think the next step would be when you guys are ready to have you both back on. Because
I won't get a word in. I won't get a word in.
Oh,
Austin will talk over me.
I can mute his mic. I can mute his mic.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I'm just kidding. All right, folks, you heard it. Please do watch for the things they're going to do, and reach out to them if you're interested. There's so much to learn. I think it's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you very, very much. And thank you. And we will see you all